What's up YouTube, Dale here from Zephyr, and I am bringing you the third and final brand new art type from Phantom Revenge for a deep deck breakdown. Today is the turn of Cool Tunes. That's right, Cool Tunes of course did get the higher end of the rarities. When you're looking at it straight away, they ended up with 5 ultra rares from the set. However, the deck will look absolutely incredible in extra shininess, but if you know exactly where to look, you shouldn't be able to break the bank to pick this deck up. And it's actually a really fun one that I highly advise you all looking for, as you already have a brand new tuner Synchron coming out in Burst Protocol, and that's before that these decks have received their first new wave of support, which we're highly expecting to be dropping in the next few weeks or so when the OCG get the next core set after Burst Protocol. So what I'm going to be doing in this video is I'm going to take you down the road and deep deck breakdown for everything this deck wants to try and achieve, quite like the Heck Hands and the Enneacross before it. Mentioning those decks, you can see that we had a Pendulum-based art type, Fusion-based art type, and now a Synchro-based art type. This deck is absolutely incredibly fun. It does benefit by playing more tuner monsters, depending on what you want to try and achieve, and that's where it still needs a bit more support by being able to get more access from extra synchro monsters that are tuners themselves, because you will lock yourself into only special summoning tuner monsters after you use certain effects. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through the monsters themselves, then we'll look at the spells and traps, and then finally the extra deck monsters being the synchros. Then I'll talk to you about some generic support cards that the deck might need to be picking up, or some cards that were reprinted in Phantom Revenge that you're definitely going to want to put to use. So don't forget to smash that like button, hit that notification bell, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more Cool Tune based content coming out. And that's going to be including a deck profile and a test hand combo video, dual or combo. So let's get rid of the excess for now and talk about the main core components of the deck, being the 4 monsters that the Cool Tunes received, being Cool Tune Q, Retco, Mix, and Clip. So each of these have very unique abilities. All of them share the exact same effect that if it would be used as synchro material on the field, a tuner monster in the hand can also be used. Now the biggest important thing about this is a condition, not an effect. So even if the monster is negated, you can still use that ability to synchro summon, quite like being able to use Revolution Synchron from the hand to just perform a synchro summon and off you go. So let's start off with Cool Tune Q. The benefit of Cool Tune Q is if it is normal summoned, specifically you get to special summon any tuner from the hand, deck, or grave except itself. So this can get you direct access to have Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit on the field, because it has a very unique ability, unlike the rest of the Ghost Sisters, that can actually be used on the field to negate, to destroy one of your opponent's cards when it is activated in response. A card you're probably going to be going to more commonly if you have access to it is Red Nova. Unfortunately, Red Nova was not in this set as a reprint. Commons are currently £5 online the last time I looked, and secret rares are about £15. So depending on how shiny you want your deck to look, that's something you might want to keep an eye on. But remember, we do still have new OTS packs coming up in between now and next year, and then we also end up having more reprint sets, stuff like the Maze of Kewl, and then, of course, the Rarity Collection 5, so it could very well be in there as well. Luckily, it's only a card you need to play at once, so it's not that big of a miss. On top of that as well, is if it is sent to the graveyard as synchro material, you get to excavate 2 cards from the top of your opponent's deck, banish 1, and place the other on the bottom of the deck. Moving on to our next card, being the Cool Tune Retco. Now this one's actually a little bit more important, because this one you get to utilize a card from the deck or the reprint of Phantom Revenge called Synchro Overtake. They can actually get you access to either of your Cool Tune monsters as long as they are listed specifically by name on a synchro monster, being your Retco and your Mix. On top of that, the fact that this is a Fiend also implies itself to another reprint, being the Earthbound Stone Sweeper, for the pure fact that you can discard it to add a Fiend tuner from the deck to the hand, being access to your Retco. Why is Retco so important? Because on normal or special, you get to add a Cool Tune monster from the deck or grave to the hand except a level 3. So you can add Mix or Clip, but you can't add Q. If it is sent to the grave as synchro material, you get to target a spell track your opponent controls and destroy it. Moving on to our Cool Tune Mix. So this is a warrior, means you can play Reinforcement of the Army if you want to. I honestly don't feel you need to go too heavily on your searches. You should have more than enough consistency within the deck, especially with the other ultra rare in this set, being your Cool Tune Synchro, which I'll talk about another card that can search this out if you wanted to. So Cool Tune Mix, as well as sharing the exact same effect that if on the field would be used as synchro material, a tuner in the hand can also be used. It has an effect on normal or special to add a Cool Tune monster from the deck or grave to the hand, except a level 2. So it can search you out your Retco or your Kewl. Then if it is sent to the graveyard as synchro material, you get to target a monster your opponent controls and destroy it. And then finally, the Cool Tune Clip. So this one is a little bit different from the others, but it still shares the exact same effect that if it will be used as synchro material on the field, a tuner in the hand can be used as well. But on top of that, it has an interactive effect during your opponent's turn. During your opponent's main phase, if this card is in your hand, you get a quick effect to special summon this card. Then immediately after this effect resolves, you get to synchro summon a tuner synchro monster. If this card is sent to the grave as synchro material, you get to banish face up a random face down card from your opponent's extra deck. So this can take away a core piece of your opponent's deck if you wanted to. And the best thing about this deck is it doesn't rely on anything supporting itself that much. So what I mean by that is once you're playing all of these at 3 and you're increasing the consistency, you could very easily play this with as any supporting engine that you wish. One of the most consistent pieces is to make sure you play as many tuners as possible, which is why you look at more hand interactions, stuff like Effect Veiler, Ghost Ogre, Ghost Bell, Ghost Mourner, and of course Ash Blossom to give you the most synchro capabilities with your monster cards like this. Another engine that you could use it is, of course, K9s. You could look at Fiendsmiths, but you could also look at Hecker Hands, which could be really, really interesting because the Hecker Hands themselves can summon themselves, take control of your opponent's monsters, and they can open up the door to play higher level synchro monsters. The only issue is your higher level synchro monsters need to be tuners ideally, because you will lock yourself into only special summoning tuners off of the back of your Cool Tune Q. So that's it for your monsters. Consistency to get to these, as I've already mentioned, is reinforcement of the army. You can consider the Stone Sweeper, but the one card you're going to be using more times than not will be your Synchro Overtake. So this one lets you reveal a synchro monster in your extra deck, and you choose a synchro material listed on it and add it to the hand or special summon it. So when you're looking at your synchro monsters, I'm just taking a quick look on that one. The two that you're going to be looking at will be your Cool Tune Remix and then, of course, your Cool Tune RS, because this one specifically lists Retco and this one specifically lists Mix. So you can get direct access to both of these by using your Synchro Overtake, meaning that you can bypass stuff like Draw and Lockbird sometimes, but it also means you can bypass certain effects to get you another tuner on the field. The archetype has 2 spells and 1 trap card. One of the spells is massively important in the form of the Cool Tune Synchro, because not only is it a quick play spell card, but it also has Synchro in the name. So if you're going to take a look back at the legendary 5Ds, a card you might want to consider picking out of the bulk will be something like Duelist Genesis. As long as you have a tuner in the field or grave, you get to add a Synchro spell or trap from the deck to the hand, being access to your Cool Tune, or of course your Synchro Overtake, depending on what consistent option you want to go for. So what does Cool Tune Synchro do? So you add a Cool Tune card from the deck to the hand except itself. Then you can immediately after the effect resolves, synchro summon a tuner synchro monster. You can't special summon for the rest of this turn after this card resolves except tuners, but you can activate up to 2 Cool Tune Synchros per turn, which is really, really important. The other benefit of this one being a quick play is it does allow you to dodge targeted effects as well, as it does perform that synchro summon. And remember that a card that you might add or a card you might already have in the hand can synchro off with your Retco, Q, or of course your Mix to then still allow its effect to resolve. Moving on to the JJ Cool Tune as a field spell. So you can normal summon a tuner during your main phase each turn in addition to your normal summon or set. Only gain the effect once per turn. Each Cool Tune Loudness Wall, which is your big boss monster from the extra deck, being this guy here that we'll talk about in a little bit later on, will gain 3,300 attack while your opponent has a tuner in the field or graveyard. Well, it's good that everyone's on like 15 non-engine, and Ash Blossom for sure is really, really going to help. On top of that, you contribute a tuner to add to your hand or special summon a Cool Tune monster from the deck. You can't special for the rest of the turn except tuners, which is absolutely fine, but the benefit of something like that is if you do unfortunately open up with all of your non-engine, you can technically set one, tribute off, and go from there, but more times than not, you're going to be searching this off through your Cool Tune Synchro monsters. And then finally, Cool Tune Playlist. Target a Cool Tune monster in the field or grave and apply the effects in sequence. For the rest of the turn after this card resolves, you can't special summon except tuners. Apply that target's effect that activates when it is sent to the graveyard as synchro material. So this is really nice because, as previously mentioned, you've got cards like Retco that lets you destroy a spell or trap. You can have the ability to banish one from your opponent's top of the deck and put one to the bottom of the deck. You can then also destroy a monster, or you can banish one from your opponent's extra deck. So you're getting a range of options depending on what you have on the grave or the field. On top of that as well, you get to return that target monster back to the hand, and you can activate up to 2 Cool Tune playlists per turn. So these are really kind of cool interactive spells and traps. Hopefully we're going to be getting a bit more spell and trap because we already have pretty much all the monsters that I think we need, and we do have a good range of synchros. I think it's just trying to find ways of getting more consistency pieces from the extra deck, or just more synchro monsters so that you don't need to play freeze of everything, but playing free of everything is not the end of the world either. So now let's take a look at the final piece, being the synchros. Cool Tunes have 4 synchros, one of them being an ultra rare, the rest being super rares. So let's start off with Cool Tune Track Maker. So it requires a Cool Tune tuner and then another tuner, and it is a level 4. If this card on the field would be used as synchro material, a tuner in your hand can be used as one of the other materials. And use each of the following effects once per turn. If this card is special summoned, you get to add a Cool Tune card from the deck to the hand. And if it's sent to the grave as synchro material, you can non-target return a card your opponent draws to the hand. So nice and disruptive, and it gets you access to be able to play less copies of your Cool Tune playlist and your JJ Cool Tune. Moving on to what is probably the core synchro monster in my opinion is the Cool Tune RS. So this specifically requires Retco and then 1 or more tuner. It gains 300 attack for each tuner in the graveyard. The level of monsters your opponent controls with 1700 or less attack are increased by 1. And during the main phase, quick effect, banish a tuner from the graveyard to then target a face-up card your opponent controls, negates effects until the end of the turn, and use each effect once per turn. Keep in mind that these are all synchro tuners, which is why when you lock yourself into synchro tuners, that's what you want to be aiming for. Moving on to Cool Tune Remix. So this specifically requires Cool Tune Mix and then 1 or more tuner. It gains 1500 attack while your opponent has a tuner in the field or grave. During your opponent's turn specifically, quick effect, tribute this card to choose 2 non-synchro tuners in the grave, add 1 to the hand, and if you do, special summon the other. Then immediately after this effect resolves, synchro summon a tuner synchro monster. Only use each effect once per turn. And then finally, our boss monster in the Cool Tune Loudness War. So this requires 2 or more tuners. Other tuners you control cannot be destroyed by card effect, and your opponent cannot target them with card effects. When your opponent activates a card or effect, quick effect, banish a Cool Tune monster from the grave, apply that banish monster's effect that activates when it's sent to the graveyard as synchro material, and use each effect once per turn. Now, as you see, the Cool Tune Loudness War is very defensive with 0 attack and 3000 defense, but that's where your JJ Cool Tune comes into play to make this a bit of a boss monster. So you've got a range of what you need. It would be quite good to see maybe another level 4 and maybe another level 6 monster to try and enter the field of play to give you a bit more aggression and disruption, but overall, as a good start, pretty decent. So now, let's take a look at the supporting cards or cards that you might want to be looking for to help you increase the strategy of this deck. So the baseline cards you're going to want to be looking like, I've already mentioned Synchro Overtake and of course your Duelist Genesis, and then the Red Nova. So why is Red Nova so important? Well, very simply, if a level 8 or higher Dragon Synchro monster is on the field, you get to special on this card from the hand. That's not really relevant, but just something you need to know. And then you get to only special on Red Nova once per turn this way. If this card is sent to the grave for a Synchro summon that uses 2 or more tuner monster and material, you get to special summon a Fire Fiend monster from the deck in defense position. Well, guess what card in the Cool Tune archetype is a Fire Fiend? That's right, the Retco. So straight away you can use your Red Nova to bridge you into the Retco. Retco then gives you a bit more advantage and you push on from there. Now the other card that you need to be aware of in the future coming in Burst Protocol is going to be the Zaren the Chainbound Dragon. Now the name might change by the time we get it in the TCG, but the whole idea behind this one is it is another synchro monster that is a tuner that gives you the ability to activate one of the following effects. So what it does is when a card or effect is activated in response to any card or effect activation, you get a quick effect to activate one of the following effects. Negate that responding effect, and if you do, destroy that card, or negate the effects of the card that was responded to, and if you do, destroy that card. So it basically is a chain breaker because it gets to go back and destroy a card or negate a card after it's already been chain blocked or chain built, which is really, really important. So you can either build it as a full Ghost Sister build, which I would actually be the first time ever in history, I think, that you could really declare a deck being a Cool Tune Ghost Sister deck, because I would advise you to be playing like Mourners, Ogres, Bells, even Veilers that aren't technically a Ghost Sister, but you get it. Ash Blossom as well. Heck, you could even consider playing Ghost Reaper, which would be really, really funny because then you'd open up some space in your extra deck and utilize those. You can look at stuff like Pot of Extravagance because you don't want to rely on the extra deck that heavily, and you can just basically make sure that all of your synchro monsters are at 3. So when I mean you don't want to rely on the extra deck that heavily, is you don't need that big of a range. You could also consider, as I've already mentioned, playing a Hecker Hand hybrid, which could be really, really funny, or you can go down more of an option of playing a Synchron version as well, because you want to be utilizing as many tuners as possible to get as much effect and consistency from the deck where available. So that's pretty much it for the entire deck breakdown. This is the one that is still a little bit undefined, as is the Hecker Hands. I really do like what the decks want to try and do. I like that it does limit itself a little bit as well, so it's not going all gun-ho and rampant. And I do like what the Hecker Hands have to offer on top of it. So I feel all 3 archetypes currently from Phantom Revenge, yes, of course, as I've already mentioned, they're not going to be breaking the meta like the previous ones have. I think the previous ones in the form of Yummies, K9s, and Drakitals were just absolutely insane for the competitive level of the game. But these are 3 decks that I could very, very easily see getting support in the future. And when it gets support in the future, that's when it's going to start to get very, very messy, because it will become very, very competitive. So something that I highly advise you looking out for is something that you might want to be considering if you're looking to play any of the decks. We've already seen that there's been a lot of hype around the Enneacrafts, and I think that this is still a strategy that is a little bit undefined. Unlike the Cool Tunes and the Heck Hands, it kind of wants to be a bit more of a control style deck, which is absolutely fine. And I feel that once you kind of get to that decision of, do you want to be combo, do you want to be fusion, do you want to be disruptive, or do you just want to be full out control, that's when you might consider playing the Enneacrafts. Not to mention the Enneacrafts contain 1 ultra rare, so it's probably like one of the easiest ones to put together of the 3, but still relatively good to do so, as none of these really broke the bank for me, as long as you know exactly where to look. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. That's been the deep dive series. If you did like the deep dive series on decks like this, then make sure you give it enough appreciating by getting it above 50 likes. In doing so, I will then consider to be doing videos more like this for upcoming sets as well, so that we can take deep dive looks into other brand new archetypes, whether that be in Burst Protocol or in the next deck building set as well. Stay tuned as well, because I will be having Hecker Hand deck profiles coming out if they haven't already, and of course Cool Tunes along with some duels before we hit the Christmas period, so you can see the decks in action and maybe use some dedicated combo videos. But for now, as absolutely always, stay safe and of course, happy dueling.